Good evening and welcome to tonight's end of season review with the return of Mark Stallard. The match action it may have stopped, but no sign of an end to Notts County drama at the minute, is there? On the day that the former Arsenal player Jack Wilshere has shot into the top three of the bookies' rankings to replace Stuart Maynard, we'll be taking a detailed look at Stuart's departure, what Mark makes of it, what you make of it, and clearly a diverse range of names out and about from all four corners of the world being touted as possible replacements. Who do you want to see? Do you want a like-for-like replacement? Do you want a more seasoned manager with promotions on the CV? That's one of the many themes that we spoke about that we'll be discussing this evening. Also on the subject of hot topics, recruitment, transfer windows, development of young players from the academy. We'll dissect the player model at Notts after the announcement of the retained list. Are you happy with what we've got for next season? Managing minutes, injuries, sport science. Have we just been unlucky this season with injuries, or is there a bit more to it? Do you think we're fit enough? And the age-old debate, performance versus results, have not struck the right balance. Are we ruthless enough, or does the way we play transcend results for you? Are you more about the style than the points? AFC Wimbledon would kind of give us an answer as to what it takes to win in the playoffs, wouldn't they? For those of us who put ourselves through the horror show of Wimbledon's Wembley playoff triumph 24 hours ago. PJ Defiant says, evening all, I've got my big mug of tea and a grab bag of Maltesers ready to hear what Stell has to say. And from Montenegro, Dimitri, the coaching change at the end has shifted the perception and left us with a good feeling. After all, League One would have been a serious competition for us. We will get there soon. Stell, good to have you back. Great timing with your little break last week. Nothing happened while you were away, obviously.
Yeah, obviously didn't miss anything. Yeah, like I say, I was drowning some golf balls in Portugal, and obviously heard the news about Stuart. A little bit surprised, gotta be said, but I'm pleased in the respect that they've acted quickly and decisively and got it done. As soon as the season ended. If that was the way they were going to go, then I'm pleased they did it quickly, and hopefully we can get somebody in place as soon as possible and get all these stepping stones and things put in place to get ready to have a real good go at the season next season.
Okay, we'll come back to Stuart and discuss that in more detail. Jurgen Halligan asks, and this is a good point I'm sure that you can pick up on, should the new coach have more say in the style of football that we play rather than the owners? And I guess for style of play, also read recruitment. Jonathan Hammock's very poor playoff final yesterday. Wimbledon are an organised, hard-working team, and ultimately that has got them up. Missed opportunity this season. Rich Hawksworth, will the owners change tack and recruit someone with league experience? If not, then the pressure could mount on them very quickly in the first 10 games. And he asks, says Rich, does the manager going make it more likely that David McGoldrick will resign? Kay saying, any truth in a rumour I've heard that Didsey has rejected a new contract and left due to it being not decent enough. I really hope it isn't true. Look, none of us quite know what's happening with David at the minute. Certainly Notts have not announced he's accepted a new contract. Probably like quite a few of you, the news that I hear and the whispers that I hear are not exactly promising at the minute, but you may well think that David would like to see who the new head coach is before making perhaps any final decision on his future. What else have we got? Gaza Lee, I can't make it tonight, guys. Kira is 18 tomorrow, so lots to do. Wanted to say a huge thanks for keeping the circle going through the season. My favourite moments, they're all away, not a surprise. Milton Keynes, Accrington, and Bradford. Rob Simmons, new coach needed. Crowley gone. Abbott gone. Is Jatta going? Didsey going? Question marks. It looks like a major rebuild is called for. Ian Hayward, I think we need someone with experience who has already got promotion on his CV. Signings, again, need experienced players and not youth, as we've seen from the January transfer window. It just didn't work out. Paul Sexton, Yao Elves, Jack Wilshere and Des Buckingham are the top three in the betting. I believe that they are. I wonder if our friends who I spoke to a few years ago who put a tenner on an unknown Danish head coach from the Faroe Isles have been putting a tenner on a few people and influencing some of the odds again. Right, plenty more to read out. Stel, okay. I think I said it was about 80-20 against Stewart. And that seems to have been more or less the way in which the decision was reached. Were you surprised at all? I think a lot of people were surprised, but I do recall you saying that after the Wimbledon exit, you felt the owners needed to make a quick, unequivocal decision and communicate it to kind of quell discontent, people not quite sure what was going, season ticket sales, etc., etc. So I don't know whether they listened to you, but they certainly did make a pretty quick decision and a pretty unequivocal one.
I'd like to think they've got more intelligent informers than me to lead the decisions, but yeah, I wanted a quick decision, and the main bit is, and the first thing to say about Stuart, wish him absolutely all the best. He was a decent bloke, a good coach, but when push come to shove, and I've been doing a few figures and what have you, 73 games I think he managed for us. He lost more than he won. And then we could go into all sorts of stats and that, but he lost more than he won. And that is not the remit. And he was given time. He can consider himself a little bit unlucky. It wouldn't have been an easy decision. And he could point at some legitimate, losses of players through injury and various bits like that. But for me, with the fan base split, whenever you get a split fan base of manager in, manager out, whoever that is, and it's never personal, you need to sort something out quickly and pin your colours to the mast by saying yes, Stuart is the man, or no, as has happened, Stuart isn't. Thank him very much for everything he's done, but we're going to go in a different direction. And to do it quickly just stops this groundswell of sort of speculation growing throughout the summer. That's been dealt with. Now it's about possibly positivity. And I don't mean that to sort of be, oh, now Stuart's gone, but I mean, now everybody can be on the same page. Yes, we can all play the speculation game about who's going to be the next manager, but we know that there is going to be a new face, a new figure in charge, and hopefully everybody can get behind whoever it is. We know some people will have a favourite or an idea of who they want, but I think we've got to back the owners to come in. You think about their appointments so far: Ian Birchnell, Luke Williams, and Stewart. None of them were anybody that anybody really had heard of, anybody knew too much about when they came in. So let's not be surprised if that's the way it goes again. But who knows? It might be something totally different. So we'll wait and see on that. But I'm just glad that they made, for me, a proactive decision. Didn't wait around for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They made the decision. Unfortunately, Stuart's lost his job, and I'd say wish him all the best going forward. But they've made a decision in the best interest of Notts County to give them the best chance for next season. And by doing it early, you give yourself a bit of time to get what you think is the right person in time for them to do a bit of wheeling and dealing, or the club do some wheeling and dealing, and them to get the feet under the table before pre-season starts. And that's ideal. The longer it goes on, the more up in the air everything is. But hopefully we've got time now to have a good summer, recruit the head manager, know where we're going, new players coming in, and hopefully that can build that excitement towards next year when, we've seen this as a missed opportunity this year. We've got to go a step better next year.
A.D. Clark, a good post from him. Looking forward to the next exciting chapter. We have to remember that this is still a learning curve for the brothers. They are smart and they will get it right eventually. To square away kind of the Stuart Maynard debate, several members of the flock have kind of pointed out Stuart wasn't necessarily helped, certainly by a January transfer window, that now we can look upon it holistically, wasn't a great asset to him. We've mentioned before on the show that for that opening playoff game against Wimbledon, he didn't start any of the players that were brought in January, and there appears to have been in the January transfer windows, the two that the brothers have been in, players that weren't signed for the immediate here and now. And the comparison that we've drawn was Rob Street being taken by Doncaster, played 22 games, scored 12 goals, and they signed him in the first week of January when Notts and Doncaster were on level on points. We signed 4 players who the head coach would have appeared reticent to play, certainly initially, or start. Is that a fair comment? Do you think Stuart was sufficiently backed in January? Because clearly the head coach of the model at the minute is kind of part at best of a committee to bring in players.
Yeah, look, the January transfer window is certainly one area that we can say, look, it didn't work. It didn't work as needed. And you've got to mention Dan Crowley going out, and then the players that came in.
Yeah.
So Dan Crowley going, such an influential player. Yes, and not the most popular player, but an influential player that can control games, have a major influence going forward. If you let him go, you've got to replace him, not just with youngsters. And look, we're speaking now with the benefit of hindsight. The idea would have been that them players coming in January were going to be good enough anyway to replace the likes of Dan Crowley and add to the squad. And let's not forget there was major additions last summer, which is why we'll come on to why there's maybe only a few released at the end of this season because everyone's still under contract pretty much. So January just didn't give the club, Stuart, what was really needed. Now that's we can say that at the minute now, but nobody knows that at the time. And recruitment is never cut and dried. It's never black and white. You only know after the event. Like I say, Doncaster appear to have got it right with Rob Street, but who's to say? If Will Jarvis scores 10 goals, or Charlie Whittaker, or Mai Traore came in and hit the ground running, who knows? We'd be saying great recruitment, but it's not proved that way, and that's why we can now say, yeah, January wasn't what was needed. Absolutely wasn't what was needed. So yes, Stuart could point to that. Of course he could, but there are other factors in it as well. It's not just January why we didn't get automatic promotion. That it's never one factor. There's a load of factors make it up. But yeah, that is certainly one. January will be pointed out. Mai Traore's come in, not scored a goal. Not had too many chances. Charlie Whittaker, 4 goals, but ultimately wasn't in the team, as you say. Will Jarvis looks like he could be a player for Notts. So I'd still believe there's a player in there, and it'd be down to him as a young lad, sort of which way he's going to go. He's got ability, he can go past players. Now, can he influence games in the way, say, Jody Jones has done for Notts? But that's it. This is it. When you bring young players in, they're making their way in the game. So there's no certainties with recruitment. And unfortunately, we can all point a finger and say, not what we needed at that time, unfortunately.
To take your point about recruitment style, but I think what it led to, the 2 January windows, kind of led to some fans saying, which I've never subscribed to, the brothers weren't that serious about promotion. They're quite happy there, patient, blah. From the statement that was issued with the dismissal of Stuart Maynard, clearly they were ambitious. Clearly they wanted promotion this season. Why else get rid of him? Yeah. So that was the objective, and that was what they thought could be achieved. But for me, the players again that were signed in January, as you point out, they let Dan Crowley go, and the players, normally the manager or head coach sat down with the directors, the recruitment board, Richard Montague, whoever it was at the time. If you're going to sign 4 players in January, including one of them on a 6-month contract, wouldn't you be wanting an assurance or some form of nod from the head coach. Yeah, he's what I want. He's the player that can get us up. Yeah, we'll play him. Yeah, he's just what we need to get us promoted. Because on the face of it, something didn't quite work out. Because Will Jarvis took a long time to play. Charlie Whittaker likewise. Zach Johnson, I guess, was brought in as cover, and Mia Traore was signed on the back of a pre-season in Norway, where Denmark, where clearly he wasn't match fit. And if you've got owners that desperately want to get promoted this season, which they were from that statement, for me, it doesn't quite stack up. Now, whether Stewart's been hard done by, whether Stewart said, I want them players, and then when he's got them, actually they're not quite ready to play them. I don't know, but it strikes me as kind of at a crucial stage of the season, messed it up.
Yeah, and what we've, look, we can only speculate on these conversations that happen behind closed doors. But what we've been led to believe when we've spoken to the likes of Joe Palmer before, Richard Montague when he was in situ, was that the head coach was involved in the conversations, of course, and although he may not have absolute final say on things, he was certainly part and parcel of the conversations. And the conversations behind a closed door, the remit for the head coach, he must have the job on the acceptance that you're part of the recruitment process, but you aren't maybe having final say, and you choose whether to accept that. Now, Stewart obviously has accepted it, and maybe, maybe regrets that, or maybe just couldn't get a tune out of these players, or maybe these players weren't quite good enough. Because this is what happens in recruitment. You have hits and misses all along the way. The data might stack up, but for whatever reason, and again, always go back to my jigsaw piece analogy, the jigsaw pieces just don't fit. Now, I'm sure with all the data that they've got, Traore, Charlie Whittaker, Zach Johnson, they all fit the metric that they use, whether that's a summer window or a January window. They would have had some data that they like and think they can come in and work. And who's to know what will happen in the future? But just for the 4 months since January, no, it didn't happen. It didn't take off as we would have liked. And maybe the owners and the recruitment side of things outside of look at that and go, well, maybe that's partly down to the head coach not being able to get the best out of them, not be able to put the team together in a way that we think we've given you the tools to perform with. But again, we're speaking without the knowledge of that inside information of what goes on behind closed doors. So unless something's changed along the way, which I don't think it has, then certainly I don't think Stewart was the one bringing the players in, but I think he was certainly involved in that. Now, again, they make the information. The fact that they've sacked Stewart straight after the end of the season, I'm not sure it was purely on the basis of whether he played or didn't play the transfer that the players brought in January. It's more the holistic view of the run of form, the results, lately, and the results overall, and the fact that where we finished and the way we went out in the playoffs. There's a culmination of factors that they would point to, and knowing the conversations they've been having with Stewart in private, they can go, well, we've analysed this, and we should have been better. We should have been better, despite injuries, despite January's transfer win, despite whatever. They think he's not maximised what he's had, and as all coaches do, they pay the price with the job ultimately. So that is the harsh reality of football. Players might underperform, but unless they're out of contract, they don't pay the price with their job usually. Yes, it can be detrimental to a career, but you can't just sack them and bin them off. So unfortunately, that's where the head coach sits, and he's paid a harsh price to it. But ultimately, the owners have shown that they do want success. I think any question marks about that, like I say, I didn't give that any value myself. But no, I think they want success. Why would you want to linger in League Two any longer than necessary? There's absolutely no sense in that really whatsoever. And we've addressed this before, haven't we? Do we want to go into League One because we're possibly not prepared for it? No, you absolutely want to get as high as you can, and that's at all levels of the club will want that, because it brings in extra revenue, it brings in more money, and it brings in better teams, and it brings a better standard of football, and allows you to bring a better caliber of player. So I think, like I say, it is a proactive decision that they've taken. It was not an easy one. I don't think it was, despite all the calls for his head. But I think it's the proactive one where they've looked at it best on the whole for Notts County, galvanising the fan base, getting them all on the same page, and hopefully now, again, recruitment. It's not straightforward, but hopefully they make the right recruitment process in terms of the coaching staff, and take us forward with players for that coaching staff that can achieve success next season.
Stephen Moore says Des Buckingham fits the club profile perfectly. Paul Sexton says so does Ian Everett. Evening from Duncan Comrie, John Gregory, and Graham Oates. On the playing side of things, Lee Atkins, and midfield was awful at times. If it weren't for George Abbott, then I think we would have finished bottom half. He's not a happy bunny. Hi, says Peter Cowlishaw from over here in Northern Ireland. Not the end to the season we want, but I'm sure the brothers have a plan. Ian Cooksey, for me personally, it's only an opinion. We should be pinning our main hope. Should we be pinning our main hopes on a player that will be 38 in November? The older he gets, the more injuries he will unfortunately suffer. That of course, is the debate about David McGoldrick that I suspect will carry on. Stell was telling me before kick-off today for the show that his former manager at Derby, Paul Warne, has just gone back to Derby to sign one of their players, Mendes Lang. I suspect budget unlimited for MK Dons this season. Richard Terry, greetings from the Woodborough Pies. Thank you for the podcast this season. Thoroughly enjoyed it and looking forward to what the new season brings. Evening all, end of season review. Where do we start? Well, hopefully we've made a start. We'll be moving on to who you'd like to see as the next manager very shortly. John Parnham, I don't expect any real information to come out until the fortnight is up or so. The brothers are careful not to rush in, and that is how it should be. No hasty decisions. Evening from Richard Elvin. Ian McQuillan says, bring back Mad Dog and get Stell in as assistant. Assistant to Mad Dog, eh, Stell? He'd keep you on your toes, wouldn't he?
He'd be throwing me in the Trent, never mind swimming it himself, would he?
Yeah. Oh, dear. Adam Kent, evening from a soggy Newark. I'm surprised that the brothers sacked Maynard. I'm hoping they will go for an experienced manager and show some ambition. Another unknown will not end well. Des Buckingham would be ideal, says Stuart Woodward, but would not be against a young, hungry manager like Jack Wilshere. Would certainly take Luke Williams back. He's also in my top 3. Lee Atkins, A up me duck, obviously from Nottingham originally, now in Poole, where it's pouring it down, apparently. Evening from Lippy Jane. Kenya Acadian, I want Luke Williams back, but maybe I am being naive. No thanks to Williams for me. Didn't know what to do when it started to go wrong, so jumped ship. Rich Hawksworth, did he leaving? If he did, it will be a huge PR issue for the brothers. If they sign inexperienced players to replace him, they will be firmly on the back foot from day one. Always I'm wary of rumours, says Graham Ward, but let's see what happens. Colin Metcalf, whoever comes in, they must have a bigger say in our recruitment, as this was our biggest problem, in my opinion, says Colin Metcalf. Ian Cooksey, yes, I clocked this. Noticeable that Wealdstone have parted company with their manager yesterday. I wonder who could end up there. I do wonder if Stewart might go straight back in there, although apparently they've had to cut the budget, haven't they, as well? They were already part-time in a full-time league, so it might be a bit of a thankless task. Will Ford. Will be interesting to see what effect Roberto Gagliardi has on recruitment. Roberto is the new de facto head of football. Colin Metcalf, in response to the results performance debate, all about results and points for me. Anything else is window dressing. Play to win mentality at all costs next season, says Richard Elvian. The retain list currently is only partial, says John Parnham. Doesn't take in additions. We hope there'll be few. So there's still some way to go before we know our final squad. Matthew Hayland. How much pressure do we think Stell's comments on BBC put on the owners after that game? Nah. I know the brothers do listen to the show, but I think the comments were made on Radio Nottingham, so not sure whether they can get that down in Twickenham. Paul Clark, are not going to sack the new manager if we don't get promoted next season. Maynard was unlucky with injuries, even though the January window was poor. I still feel sorry for him. Derek Flowers, let's go with an experienced manager, like we did with Ardley, Cooper, Sheridan. They worked well, didn't they? I detect some sarcasm from Derek there. Lee Atkins, no, I'm afraid he had to go. No plan B. Did not know how to change a game. Couldn't motivate either. Right, okay. So we know we need a new head coach. All sorts of people. Jack Wilshere being the latest to have had his hat thrown in by his agent or whoever today, or someone's put a tenner on him. What are you looking for in the next head coach, manager Stell? So, firstly, are you looking for, without going into the names, are you looking at a like for like to fit in with the philosophy? Or would you be looking for someone with more experience, with a promotion on the CV? The comparison I and you have often drawn is that if you look at an identikit of the last 6 automatic places, those 6 clubs over the last 2 years, help me out because I won't be able to remember them all. Alzheimer's is setting in. Nigel Clough, Phil Parkinson, David Challoner, Darren Moore, Grant McCann. Who've I missed? I got 5.
Graham Alexander.
Graham Alexander. None of them are your young 30-year-old coach, are they? What do you want to see? Or let's put it this way: what do you think can fit into where the brothers are?
Well, look, what is going to fit in is a coach that plays attractive football, because that's the sort of mantra, the doctrine that they've set down. Now, I don't think anybody who follows any club would argue with wanting to see that sort of football, right? Attacking, attractive football, that is the utopia. The utopia is to attach that to winning, successful football, of course.
Yeah.
But I think as a sort of, whatever you want to call it, philosophy, way for the club to play, I don't see that as a problem. And again, to bear in mind, every coach pretty much does the same coaching courses, right? You know, years ago it was long ball, Charles Hughes, and every coach did that, and then they go off and put their own personality and tweaks on it. And the modern day, it's this passing, possession-based football, playing through the lines, having the ball 1v1 situations, creating overloads. That's the way they all learn. And then they all go off and put their own spin on it and personality. And then it's about motivation, getting the most out of players, tactical, you know, details, if you like. So I don't think there's going to be any change. We're not going to go back to, I think of Kevin Nolan when he was here, very much the West Ham, David Moyes way. We get the ball forward, we play in the final third, and we look to do it that way. We minimise risk, and he got us in the playoffs. And you know, with a bit of luck against Coventry, we could have had a different result, but it wasn't the prettiest to watch. You know, I think if people think back to that and we're honest, it wasn't great to watch at times. Now, people will say this season hasn't been great to watch at times. It's been very sideways, backwards, methodical, and slow. And I think, you know, justifiably at times that people are right to say that. So I think we're looking for a manager that knows how to play possession-based football. But I would absolutely agree that I would like somebody who's got a bit of success, who's been there and done it. Now, that's not easy because there aren't tons of them out there, out of work and available, and who would come and take the Notts job on the budget that Notts have got. but there might be some. There might be somebody who knows what it takes, who's been course and distance, got a promotion, knows what it takes to win, has been there when the pressure's on. That's what you want ideally, and there are people out there that we can all think of, I'm sure. Um, but again, it's down to budget, it's down to the way that the board sort of see it. And there'll be plenty of candidates. Some people might say, no, we need somebody new and young and fresh, a Jack Wilshere like, modern, young, exciting. Some people will want experience and think that's worth it. The bottom line is there is no magic secret for it. There is no, as the person there who's putting on, sarcastically saying about experience, absolutely right. You can bring in an experienced manager and it not work. You can bring in a young manager and it doesn't work, and vice versa. So that's the ideal, I think. If you can find somebody who's got success on their CV, then, just as we talk about, if you've got a player that's always injury prone or been injury prone, chances are he'll remain injury prone. If you can bring in a head coach that has had success and is a winner or has been a winner before, chances are he might win again. And that for me, yeah, that would be what I'd be looking for, and I'm sure they're sifting through applications and CVs and career stats. Well, over the past few days, I'm sure it's sort of a lot of the work's been done already.
One thing, you and I have spoken about this off air, but I find it a little strange that the brothers have a statistical and a data model. That's fine, to each their own. There's no right way or there's no wrong way. But when they choose a head coach, so far, it's always appeared that the head coach, yes, ties into the philosophy, but they've lost more games than they've won. Because if you look at the record of Ian Birchnell, relegated out of the one of the Scandinavian leagues, halfway at best when he was in Sweden. Luke Williams was a big gamble, one relegation at Swindon. And if you look at Stewart, it's halfway Wealdstone. Yeah, not one of those had been winners. And I do find it quite interesting when you draw these metrics up. Why wouldn't higher up that list be a winner? Because with the greatest respect to those three, on their CVs when they were appointed to Notts County, none of them are winners. None of them. And
No,
I,
no,
and I, and I categorize winners by promotion on their
yeah,
CV or whatever. You look at Challoner. It's something like about 14 promotions or maybe more that those 6 head coaches have got at other clubs.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you in terms of, you know, that they've appointed surprise choices so far. But obviously they've got some data model they like with it. Out of the 3 appointments, one has ultimately worked, hasn't it, in
Yeah.
terms of getting success, Luke Williams. But they could argue, well, 2 of Luke Williams and Ian Birchall have left to go to a club 2 divisions higher than where we were currently. So they've
Should
been
be
sort of cherry
judging by
picked.
what they do at Notts County, not what else happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So then they're saying, well, they're looking for value, aren't they? They say in player terms, you're looking for somebody who's going to be a success and be a success at your club rather than having to pay for the CV that they've achieved elsewhere. And again, there's no guarantee that that comes with any future success. But like any recruitment, it is fraught with danger and never certain. Never, absolutely no certainty attached to anything. So they'll do the most sort of preparation, detailed analysis of a career as best as you can, but it still doesn't mean it's going to work when you come into situ for whatever reason. So, look, I'd like somebody with success. I think we'd all like somebody who's got a CV that you can go, look, he's won League Two once, twice. He's got promotions in 2 different clubs or what have you. But ultimately, that costs. The better your CV, the more you're going to charge. So again, there's a budget to be fit in with. One other thing is, one bit as well is 2 of them appointments were appointed in non-league when we were
Yes.
non-league. Now we're a football league club, and Stewart is the only one that was appointed as a football league or appointed to us as a Football League club. So now we are probably a bit more attractive than we were in non-league. So maybe, having had Stewart, and the way cycles go with managers, sometimes it goes to something a bit different. So maybe this time it will be somebody with a track record. Who knows? It could be somebody foreign. It could be something from left field that we don't know. But again, I'm happy to just. They've got all the data, all the analysis. They know what they want. I'm happy to put my trust in them to appoint the right man. And then I think what is, say, as important, but almost as important, almost on a level, is player recruitment. I think the player recruitment is absolutely key this summer, and probably key because there isn't too much wiggle room in terms of, as I said, players going out doesn't free up too much of the budget. And I agree with, and I'm sorry I didn't catch the name of whoever mentioned it, David McGoldrick, fantastic player, and if we can keep him, we need to because he's a fantastic player. But every player has got a value, and every player is earning a salary that if his salary is, busting the budget, then they have to look and go, well, if it's too much, we have to let him go, and we think we can spend it better elsewhere. So again, because of his age, he might have an offer somewhere else because of what he's done. We don't know. We certainly hope he stays here, but again, we can't bust the budget on one player who at 37, we don't know how many games he's going to be available for.
Ray Newton says, winners cost money, and are the brothers willing to pay that sort of money to get the success? My views on the manager being the most important person at a club still. If you look at Stockport's success, hugely down to David Challoner. Parkinson done for all the money they've spent, not an easy club. Martin Allen said that to manage. Phil Parkinson has been brilliant. Nigel Clough has succeeded at Mansfield, where a succession of managers had failed. The brothers are somewhere between 15 and 20 million down at the minute in terms of their investment into Notts. I might respectfully say to you, the one job, the one position you do not scrimp on and break the budget, pay 50 grand more, pay 100 grand more, if you think you can get the right manager or head coach, go and do it. Because a good head coach or a good manager repays that salary in spades so many times over. No?
Yep. I agree. And like I say, but it's not our money. We all know what it's like to
Again,
bust a budget on
yeah,
shopping for things, don't we?
you've,
We
you've
set a
already done
budget and
15 million, Stel. I mean, there's times to,
well,
and we're in League Two. We ain't League
so
One yet,
what we say, they've done 15 million, they may as well do 20, 25. It is that absolutely. Look, it's not our money, it's monopoly money to us. But I absolutely agree the point you're saying. A coach, of course, the coach is the one that gets the extra 5% out of players. That they make the difference. Of course, they need the players as well. Guardiola would not have kept Ipswich up or Southampton up in the Premier League this season, or anybody you care to mention. Put them in there. They're not miracle workers, but they do make a difference. And absolutely, if there's a small discrepancy in budget, you go and get the best you can get. But I would attach that to match-winning players as well. I think
okay.
that's something else you've got to do.
Lots of people have mentioned this. I'm going to put you on the spot, Stel. It'll be hard for you to prevaricate on this one. Would you take Luke Williams back?
Yes, because he was successful. But
Yeah.
would he be my instant first name? I don't know. Again, it depends who's out there. It depends who's interested in the job. I know Ian Everett's been mentioned now. He's a former teammate of mine, so I maybe could be biased on that. But he's got experience of promotions on his CV.
Talk to me about
You
Ian
know,
Everett. I'm a big fan. Yeah. Matty Platt played under him, got a promotion. He was on loan from Blackburn to Barrow,
yeah,
and Matty was playing under him. And Matty was telling me one of Ian Everett's favourite phrases was, if it's windy, keep the ball on the ground because it's not windy on the ground, was one of the things he used to kind of say to them.
yeah.
Possession-based football, 3-5-2. So you've played with him, multiple promotions. Talk to me about Ian Everett then.
Yeah, well, like I say, centre half as a player, and not somebody you'd automatically think of being a manager from my experience, but a good lad. But again, you look at somebody's given an opportunity, and he's absolutely took it with both hands at Barrow, and then gone on to Bolton and achieved things there. So, two very different clubs in very different circumstances. You know, I think I remember the Barrow team was hard working and good football, but pressing high, work hard, make the most of what he had, and then because of his success there, he got to move to a bigger club in Bolton and got success there as well. So you know, good CV, a good CV. Again, I'm not saying that I want him as manager, but I'm just saying they're the sort of names that are going to be bandied about. But I think he's you know got a decent winning CV. But ultimately, like any head coach, he's also been sacked. And then you go, well, all managers are sacked or head coaches get
Yeah.
sacked and whatever. So look, there's to come back to the original question, would I take Luke Williams? Yes, I would, because I think he's a good coach. Now, what I think everyone's got to be mindful of, Luke Williams had success when we had a really good team in a very bang average National League division. Right, take Wrexham up aside from it. League Two is a different kettle of fish. But he would be coming back, if he did come back, he would be coming back with a better squad of players at a higher level. So would I take him back? Absolutely. Would he be the first name and the only name I'd look to? No. But he's got success on his CV. Now it didn't work out for him at Swansea, but he didn't stay there overly long, did he? So who knows? But again, he might not want the job. He might be out of our range in terms of
Mm.
finance and things like that. And also you're a little bit wary about coming back for the second time, aren't you? So
Yeah.
things like that. I think there's plenty of coaches out there, plenty of head coaches out there. Not all of them would be able to be a success at Notts. And sometimes the ones that look the obvious fit aren't the right fit. So it's about trying to find the right fit, and only time will ever tell if it is the right fit. Because, what are the stats about Notts promotions in the last 25, 30 years? There ain't many of them. So we are chasing something and we're treating it like we've got a divine right to it, but they are hard to come by sometimes. So it's about getting the pieces right and about making right decisions and correct decisions. And hopefully they do get it right.
Insanity, says Rob Simmons, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If the brothers go for another unknown coach from non-league, then bring in the men, sorry, in white coats. When we won the league in 09-10, Carl Brandom says Steve Cottrell came in, told the players they were going to win the league. He instilled the belief that they were the best. I think originally in his first meeting, as Lee Hughes told us at our last live podcast, Carl, he tore them off a strip and said they were a disgrace. But yeah, you're right in the sense that he said winning the league was the only acceptable outcome for that group of players. Dane Vincent says good base of a team at Notts. Get players in position, play to strengths, and a few new additions will go a long way. Will be interesting to see how many poor signings come good under a new manager. Yeah, that's a good point. Often players that struggle under one then get a new lease of life when there is a managerial change. Right, okay, let's move on. There's quite a lot still to get through. The whole subject of recruitment, transfer windows, young players coming through the academy. We've used the word value. Um, uh, Conversely, people would say the balance of the existing group of players can lack a certain ruthlessness, aggressiveness, um, call it what you will. I mean, where do you think Notts have been on their recruitment policy over the past, let's say, since they've come back into the Football League?
Well, I think as a whole, it's been fairly decent. As a whole, I know we've mentioned about January maybe not being the immediate, or both Januaries maybe not having the immediate impact we wanted them to. But I think you'd say probably in the summer we've recruited well. There's some good
Yeah.
players coming. Lessons learnt from that first season, conceding a million goals, and gone to address that. Now, like anything, not perfect. Just because it's decent doesn't mean it's perfect. There's always going to be hits and misses with recruitment, but I think on the whole, it's been pretty good. I think it's been pretty good. Um, but again, you've got to keep going. Football is always moving on, always evolving. But you're quite right. What you say there with a new head coach, some players might look at it be different players under a different coach. They give them a bit of belief. They play a slightly different way. They're looking for different things from certain players, and that can sort of give players a new lease of life. And I think hopefully one for that. And we don't want to single people out particularly, but I think Jodie's as good an example of that. Somebody who's been around for a couple of years. We know an immense player on his day, but I don't think he ever came back from his injuries this season looking like the same player. Now, hopefully, as summer, maybe a new coach might play a part in that. I know the inverted wing fullback against the inverted wing back against the normal-sided wing back debate has had plenty of airtime, so I won't even go into that because we might well have another coach that goes with inverted. But you know, I think he's an example of a player that we need back to his best. He's a match winner. He's quality. He's a match winner. He's something you don't get in many League Two clubs, but only when he's playing at his best. And that can sum up recruitment. Not to use him as a model, but people can come in who are good players, but if they don't play well, if they're not in form, if they're not feeling confident, if they're not, given the tools, or if they're held back within a system, maybe, or not given that belief, whatever it is, then it won't work. It doesn't work. Good players can look bang average, and vice versa. Some players who look bang average get a coaching, gives them a bit of belief, they get a bit of confidence, and they shoot for the stars then. And you think, well, I never saw that coming. So a change of coach can really ignite some players. Conversely, other players might go the other way. But I think that's it. I think there's a few players, we talk loads about the head coach and things like that,
Mm.
but I think there's a few players since the turn of the year who haven't been on top of their game. We know they can play better, and I think that's throughout the team. And it only needs to be down by a percent or two here and there, and it makes a big difference to the collective, the team collective. So hopefully that'll be first and foremost. A few new players in the summer, new coach, new methods, new ways, new voices, and that can reignite a few players to get the best out of them.
By means of an example, I'm just plucking a name. So, do you see Will Jarvis, for instance, staying as a left wing back, or do you see him having a potentially different role for the club next season?
I, again, without knowing Will Jarvis, I'd have to speak to him. I'd want to see him in training regularly. He's got that ability to go past players. He just drift past players, unbelievably so. Um, but he's also been found at fault defensively a couple of times, and we got punished for that. So, can he play wing back? Absolutely. Has he got to develop and improve? Absolutely, as all players should do, and particularly younger players. But if he's willing to take it on, if he's willing to put the hard work in, then I think he could be a really good player, a really good player, because that ability to go past players is a difficult one to teach, if at all possible to teach, and he's got it. So there's a player in there, and that's no doubt why they gave him that long-term contract. Um, but you need a coach that can sort of get it out of him, and he's got to put the hard work in himself. He's got to be determined, have that drive, that motivation to say, do you know what? I was in and out of the team. I don't want to do that next season. I want to be first choice, and I want to end up player of the season because he's somebody that can excite people. I want to be a fan favourite, but he's got to work hard. He's got to get fit, strong, improve, and get better, and then contribute, which is the hardest thing when you are younger, to try and contribute week in, week out. But that's what making your way in the game is about. You have to force your way in front of other players. So yeah, I think Will Jarvis could play as a wing back. I don't see him as a fullback. I see him as a winger. But he could maybe play one of their number 10 positions as well, because he's got a bit of an eye for a goal as well. Um, but he's a good player. He looks like he could be a good player. How good? That's down to him and a coach getting it out of him. Same with everybody, though. That is the same with everybody. Like I say, Connor Grant is one. You know, looks good on occasion, gets in good positions, but he's only scored 4 goals this season. That's, well, 5 if you include one in the cup, the first one of the season. I'm going to throw down him a challenge for him. Can he get double figures next season? Because he should have had him this season, or he should have certainly got more this season. But you always throw them challenges down to every player. When you've got a squad of players that are decent players, you've got to challenge: A, get a shirt; B, keep the shirt; and C, how close are you going to be to player of the season? And that's that's the nuts and bolts of a challenge for a professional player.
Kyle Motson, I'd love the new coach to change the system, move to a 4-2-3-1 and play Jarvis and Jody as attacking midfielders. Bit of a debate about captaincy as well. Ian Cooks, he says, I watched Jake Reeves as captain for Wimbledon yesterday at Wembley. Brilliant captaincy when it was needed. Jarvis is top tier at this level, says Cole Brandon. Play him as a striker, says Ian Haywood. Stella's dead right, says Graham Ward, about underperforming players. Not sure if some of them didn't believe or if they knew they'd be out of a job if we'd sneaked promotion. Most have been retained. Injuries.
Just a couple of bits. Sorry, Paul. Just on that, just while it's fresh a bit.
Yeah.
2 bits. Jake Reeves, yeah, great captain at Wimbledon. Again, example of a jigsaw piece that fits because he played for us in non-league, had that one season. And nobody was saying he pulled any trees up. Nobody was saying what great captaincy material. So it's amazing how you get the right piece in the right, round peg in a round hole, as they say.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. And the other bit there about players, did they not play because they didn't want to get promoted in case they were released? No, players want to get promoted. You want success. You want the bonus, the money that brings. And if it means your contract wouldn't be renewed, then because you've got a promotion, you'd find another club, no problem. So. Yeah, it's just form. Unfortunately, that is just form. Why players don't play to the best all the time, just form. Sometimes it's inexplicable, and sometimes it can be put down to a coach not getting the best out of players. I'm not saying that's what was happened, but that's what that's what it can come down to.
One of the phrases you've used in the past on this show, and you said it's one of the most damning things that can be levelled at a team, is being too nice. Yeah. Now that is something that we've said before: resilient, never say die, brutal, cynical, dark arts are not any phrases that we associate with Notts. You'd associate them with Wimbledon, who are got a master's degree in how to pull shirts on the blind side of the referee. But it's all part of the game, isn't it? It's not sour grapes in that respect. Do you think we were too nice last season?
At times, yeah, at times, but not as much as I believe we've had nice teams in the past. I think we're getting there with that. I think we've got players that give as good as they get. I said there's nowhere more the dark arts happen at the very top level because it's part of the game. Honestly, it is. At the top level, the higher they're up, ball and man do not pass. It is. It is what it's about. It's about winning. It's about getting results, and you do what you do, and your dark arts, whatever you want to call it. What if you can get away with it? If it's within the boundaries of not being spotted and gaining your team an advantage, it's what you do. So look, when you don't have success, you always want your team to be right. I wish we were nastier. I wish we were better. I wish we were bigger, stronger, faster, everything. But there are times when I think we were a bit nice, but I don't think we are. I think we've got some solidity in there. I think we've got some resilience now in there. Yes, of course, you can always improve, but I think we've got it. I think we sort of give as good as most teams, and then we trust to our football to be better than most teams. So again, it's about maximising your positives and minimising your weaknesses.
Okay. Another phrase we hear a lot: managing minutes. Injuries, which we've obviously suffered very badly from this season. Sports science. Have we just been unlucky this season? Is there more to it than that? When a team doesn't kind of perform to the levels you would expect of it, it's very easy and in a way lazy to say, oh, we're not fit enough. Yet quite a few people have commented that towards the end of games, we've seldom finished the stronger of the two teams, which on the face of it, with more possession, normally, the side with more possession finishes the fitter of the two. I mean, what's your take on this season? Have we just been downright unlucky with the injuries?
Well, look, we've been unlucky with injuries at times throughout the season. Obviously, Jody being the main one, really.
Yeah.
Obviously, others as well. But I think the thing is, over a full season, yes, you can say we're unlucky, but everybody has injuries. Every club has injuries throughout a season. If you have more than others, then you can say, okay, that's a bit unlucky, but that's what you assemble a squad for. I think over a season, you have to make your own look. You have to circumnavigate the obstacles. You have to find answers. And you're given that transfer window in January to find some solutions,
Mm.
if you like. If you have got them injuries, um, we certainly had injuries. But then I think if you looked at every club, they had injuries. Bradford got promoted. The leading scorer wasn't available for most of the season, along with other players not being available. Port Vale, Doncaster, will all point to we've had injuries at some point, but they got over the line. They got the job done. Ultimately, we were sixth best. We were sixth best in the table, regardless of injuries, regardless of luck, regardless of everything. You know, we were sixth best, and we weren't good enough. So I don't really put too much stock in injuries because you're going to get injuries. Yes, at certain points in the season, you can say, God, we're missing two or three key players. And if they are key players, then obviously it hurts you more than, a squad player, let's say. But over a full season, 46, 48 games, playoffs and cup games, I don't think you can blame luck too much because every team has good and bad luck, and you have to make the best of it.
Okay. Age-old debate, performance versus results. Look, clearly we haven't struck the right balance because we didn't get promoted. Um, do you think there is a need to be, inverted commas, more ruthless, practice the dark arts a little bit more like Wimbledon? Um, is there a glass ceiling for the way we currently play? Can you get up doing exactly the same, or do you think we need to tweak a few things here and there?
No, no, there's no glass ceiling. The glass ceiling is the level of ability of players. Man City play passing football, possession football. They'd get promoted out of League Two. Teams that play football, it's about the ability, the pace that you do it at, the quality you move the ball at. Just because it's passing football and this is League Two, it doesn't preclude you from having success. You've just got to do it well enough. And then when you've not got possession of the ball, your closing down's got to be right. Your dark arts, you've got to be able to be good out of possession of the ball as well. It's honestly, it's an easy sort of thing to sort of say
Yeah,
that well, it's League Two football, so we've got to play League Two style football, long ball. You don't. You just have to play your style of football better than the opposition who are trying to stop you. And then when they've got the ball, you've got to stop them better than they can play with the ball. And like I say, there's no right and wrong way of doing it. That's not to say you've got to pass the ball and be possession based, or you've got to be long ball and direct, or you've got to get the ball wide and put crosses in. There's no one way to do it, but you've got to do it better than all the other teams. That's what this season Doncaster, Bradford, and Port Vale did. They played their style of football better throughout 46 games than every other team in the division, and that's why they got the rewards. And Wimbledon, when it mattered in the playoffs, kept 3 clean sheets and gets them promoted. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, absolutely. But because we play possession based football, there's no glass ceiling to it. That's just something that's a mental obstacle you can put there. If you do it well enough, you can win a game. And if you win one game, you can win 46 games. If you do it better than the opposition. You can't win 46 games at once. You can only win the one game that's in front of you. And there's not a game this season that we couldn't have won. We didn't win them, obviously, and I would say very rare. Nobody's ever going to win all 46 games. But I say they're mental obstacles. They don't exist. The glass ceiling is not a real thing. Okay, you can push the barrier. You can always push the barrier and push it to new levels. It's just whether you believe you can and whether you've got the ability to do so.
We've spoken an awful lot this season about missed opportunity, great year to go up. Yeah, in the sense that we thought that the previous automatically promoted teams, Mansfield, Wrexham, and Stockport from last year, would have finished top three this year. We've not gone up. Do you expect it to be a tougher League Two next year? Clearly, I'm looking at John Eustace at MK Dons. He won't have gone there unless he's been told it.
Paul Warne.
Paul John Eustace. Yeah, he's gone in at Derby. Apologies, Stel. Yeah. Paul Warne's gone in there. He wouldn't have gone there unless he's been given certain assurances about budget and players he can sign and all the rest of it. You look at Salford and Messrs Beckham and Giggs and Scholes have kind of got some money in, 4 to 5 million quid allegedly for Cole Robinson. Do you think it would be a tougher division to get out of next year or not?
It could be. You don't know. I think I'll hold fire on that till I see the player recruitment. See who. It's all right having money, as Carlisle will find out.
Yeah.
You can have money and go down. You can have money. MK Dons had money this year and finish 17th, 18th, something like that. Money is not exclusive to success. It helps. It helps massively. But again, then you come down to all these question marks and unknowns. Recruitment. Players coming down, like I say, on big money, sometimes aren't the most motivated players in the world because they've just signed a big juicy contract and think, well, easy days, happy street, I'll put my slippers on. Some don't. Some are, really good players. So I'll wait and see till the recruitment's done. But it's going to be tough. Like I say, this is one thing we've almost, like I said, I've said it before. I think National League and non-league has just muddied our eyes a little bit as to how difficult success in the Football League is. Because think of all them years, take them 4 years out of it, there's been a lot of years without success. And we talk about the Hughes' team and Steve Cottrell and that. I think any of us would have sat in that dressing room, stood in that dressing room and said, you should be winning the league with the players that you've got. That was an unbelievable squad for the level. I don't think anybody, and this is it, I don't think anybody would equate today's squad, this season's squad, with anything like the sort of dominant ability that squad had. That squad per man were better in a lot of areas all over the pitch than today's squad is. So, that is a squad that should have got success and did get success. I would argue that maybe today's squad isn't that sort of strength, but hopefully it will be after the summer. And we'll wait and see. What we're talking about budgets. We don't know what sort of budget Notts are going to have. It'll be competitive. I'm sure it won't be the top in the division. I'm absolutely certain. But I'd like to think that the brothers, again, amongst all their data and all their analysis and all their research that they do with leaving no stone unturned, will look at, right, maybe we have got to just put a little bit more money into this. And as I saw somebody mention, last season they were paying for, was it £1 million for the pitch and the developments there? They bought the nest and the developments there. I'm not sure they've got the same sort of capital outlay this summer in terms of things for the infrastructure of the club. They may have, I don't know. But maybe they're just going to go, right, let's allocate some of that funds. That's bringing money in, hopefully, the nest and whatever. Let's allocate some of them funds to recruitment. Let's maybe up the budget a little bit, not not make us unsustainable as they want to be, but still look for value in players, still look for youngsters, inexperienced players, rough diamonds, if you like. But maybe there's some money there to go, right, we maybe need a proven goal scorer or a match winner, a Dan Crowley replacement, or somebody like that who we can bring in and go, this has given us the best possible chance. No guarantees, of course, but the best possible chance to get success next season. Because, as we've said, I'm absolutely 100% certain they want success just like we want success.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Look, you spent a lifetime in football still. The brothers are still young men, massively younger than me, a bit younger than you. If you had to give them one piece of advice, 6 years in now at Notts, what might it be? And we're not talking about preaching here, but given you have an extensive background in football, what might you what piece of advice might you give them?
Just try and be true to yourselves. Whatever you believe in, be true to that. Don't get swayed by social media, by outside influences. If you've got a plan and you think the plan is still strong and you're always looking at, be true to it. Be true to it, and that's all you can do. Let's face it, it's their money, it's their club at the end of the day, and they've done pretty well thus far. They, like I say, barely put a foot wrong. I think we back them, and I would say just be true to what you believe and what you're doing.
Will Charlesworth says, I would put us as favourites to win the league. I don't see why we shouldn't. If we had a little more last season, we would have been up and in the fight for it. So as for next year, why not? Chesterfield's a team that's been mentioned a few times by several members. At Chesterfield are the bookies' favourites, says Dale Pikett. Attendances have gone up a lot. Pointed out by several of you in terms of a budget. Got your manager's hat on now, or head coach's hat on, Stel. Where would you be looking to? Where would your first piece of, or if there was a bit of major surgery to be done on this group, where would it be? What would you be looking for?
Oh, right. Well, assuming nobody's going out, assuming I've
Yep.
still got the players that we've ended the season with, barring those
Yep.
that have been released, assuming Didsy's still there.
Yep.
I want two things, I think, for me. I want some pace, maybe in wide areas,
Right.
or up top. I want some pace, and I want a creative player in the middle of the park, a real creative player, somebody, I say Dan Crowley, yes, somebody who can have the ball, make things happen. Because then I think that gets more out of Jatta, Didsy. It takes a little bit of workload off Didsy's back, having to drop deep. Of course, he's going to drop deep because that's how you come and find space at times and lose your defenders. And he's got qualities as well. But I think as well, if you've got somebody you can trust, and whether it's in a wide area, whether it's in the middle of the park, who can put a ball on a sixpence, can pick out a run, put the ball in dangerous areas, know when to play that pass, when to unlock a defence, then I think you can concentrate on doing your job, or your main part of your job, which is putting the ball in the back of the net. And one thing I said, we were critical, weren't we, throughout the season, that people, Matt Palmer and players, and I mentioned Matt Palmer because he's the skipper, and people say he wasn't his best, and he wasn't. But players like him rely, because he'll have the ball more than anybody, but they rely on being able to give it to somebody who can make something happen. And I think at times last season, too often, we had a team of players that were good at possession, passing the ball, but when it came to actually making something happen, I think we were lacking. Real quality in the final third, cutting edge, creativity, whatever you want to call it. I think we didn't quite unlock the door well enough. And then all of a sudden, everybody looks like, well, we're just passing sideways for the sake of doing it. Whenever in a football team, you want players to give it to your creative players. Go on, Jody, whoever it is, go and make something happen. I think we just need, like I said, Will Jarvis might come of age this year. Certainly hope so. Jody back to his best with that. I think we're a hell of a team. Add in a little bit of creativity centrally, and obviously people who can put the ball in the back of the net. It's the age old thing, the difference between possibly automatic and playoffs. Sticking the ball in the onion bag. It's worth its weight in gold. And if you want to play devil's advocate for people who like say, we're looking at Didsy may stay or may go, Jatta, we don't know what's happening there. Macaulay Langstaff, you said, was on the transfer list.
Telepathy. I was going to say, I was going to put you on the spot. Would you take Macaulay Langstaff back?
Well, I was just going to throw another name in. Or Rob Street's available. Now then. Now, where'd you go? Where'd you put your budget? If you've got budget for 2 of them players, where you going? I'm going to turn it on you.
Where would I go?
2 out of them 4.
I would take Langstaff back in a heartbeat. Cut a deal. I don't know whether Millwall have paid us all the money, 600 grand. I don't know how it's done on instalments. If you could get him, what would I pay for him? I'd pay 300 straight away. Wouldn't even think about it. I'd pay 300 grand, get him back. He's got to take a cut on his wages, obviously. People at Notts who I would trust tell me that of all the players that they have worked with over the last 5 years, he's the best character, most honest, no airs and graces, mucks in with the lads. So as a character, top draw. And I just wonder if he's one of those players that Millwall, perhaps not the right club, fish out of water down there. I'd have no hesitation in bringing him back. Rob Street, I think he's quality, but I doubt we'd get him, would we? Wouldn't Doncaster be Doncaster like desperate to get him in League One?
We're only playing, Devils. This is Football Manager.
I know
I'm
we
just
are.
saying, which 2 do you want? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but on your Christmas wish list.
Yeah, my number one choice, I'd take Langstaff back. I'd take him back tomorrow because I think he can get goals. Hey?
And then who are you having? Which one of the next ones?
Are we working on the basis that Jatta is staying?
Well, you can pick 2 from 4. My rules, my game.
I don't think. Look, if you've got Alessandro Jatta and Macaulay Langstaff, I don't really think you can persuade Rob Street to come. I'm not quite sure I'd have them.
You can only have 2. That's 3.
That's what I mean. Yeah, if you Neil Warnock, you'd have all of them, wouldn't you? You know, what I mean? You'd have 100 goals in the team. I'd have Jatta and Langstaff. I'd have Jatta and Langstaff.
Right, there's the headline. Paul Mace ditches Didsey.
All right then. Right, okay. So you give a caveat with Luke Williams. So who would your choice be for head coach? And I'll give you mine after you've given me yours.
Honestly, I don't know because I've not really studied who the runners and riders. But I'll say Ian Evatt. I'll say Ian Evatt. But I like I say I've not really done any depth of digging on who's available and who's not.
But we agree on something still. Very rare.
Oh, is that who you're going to say? Okay, fair enough.
I would go for him. Winner. And hey, you know what? I don't know what Notts pay managers at the minute. They pay 100 grand at the minute for a League Two manager. I'd pay Evatt 250 grand because for me, he's worth it to get you promotion. Don't scrimp. You know what I mean? Don't scrimp on a manager. Some people were saying about managers won't drop from the Championship to League Two. Darren Moore did that to Port Vale. Darren Moore, Sheffield Wednesday. His next job was Port Vale. I think he went towards the end. Did he when Port Vale were in the throes of being relegated? But I think you've got to aim really high in the bar for a manager stroke head coach. Now, Ian Evatt better than me. Would an Ian Evatt accept the parameters of recruitment? Because I think that's the grey area. These players better than I do, but would these kind of managers or head coaches that have a certain mentality, how much are they going to move the needle on not controlling recruitment?
Yeah, and that's only something the individual would be able to tell you. How much you want the job, as to how much. It's like everything. You might say it at an interview, yeah, that's fine, as long as I'm involved and have a say. And then when you're 6 months into the job, you might get a bit, fed up of the fact that you're not getting a final say on recruitment. But again, that's down to individuals. That's down to individuals how much they want the job, because. Again, there's only ever 92 league jobs out there, or Premier League and Football League jobs. There's only ever 92 in employment, at any one time. And there are a lot of coaches, stroke managers who want them jobs. So, again, but Notts County, I'd say you don't necessarily have to go and pay over the odds because Notts County is a draw, is a good club to want to manage. So you don't have to pay over the odds. You sell Notts County, it should sell itself. We're a club with ambition. We want to go places. Look at the fan base, look at the stadium, look at the players that you're going to come in and work with, look at the position we were in the league. We're not a million miles away. We're looking up, we're not looking down. There are plenty of managers will go, do you know what? I will take that job. Look at two out of the last three managers. They've gone up two divisions by taking the Notts County job. So again, it's not about you've got to put a massive salary on it. It's about selling the club, advertising the club to the managers. Because again, part and parcel of the game of poker, isn't it? You have managers apply for the job and go, well, we've got plenty of interest, thanks. You know, do you want it? How much do you want it? You show us you want the job. You tell us why you'll get a success. Because if you don't, we're interviewing half a dozen more who will be able to tell us. And again, you don't go over those. You don't have to pay. You have to pay a decent wage, of course you do. But I'm like you want to get the best you possibly can, but you want to get it at the best possible price because what you don't spend on the head coach is left to spend on players, and that's the thing that's got to you've got to marry together to attract any coach. They've got to know there's recruitment space for players and the budget there to bring in the players that they think they can ultimately be successful with.
Gresham Maxwell says, I've just seen Paolo Di Canio coming out the navvy with his agent. Nay says, and actually, they're all joking. So I think this is actually a very valid point. With the biggest club in League Two, we should be getting a certain caliber of manager. And I think what Nay's kind of saying there is, now Bradford have moved on, we're getting 10,000. So in terms of support, that is the biggest. Stadium is brilliant by League Two standards. Infrastructure of the club, owners, you would absolutely put us in the top three. You'd absolutely put us in the top three. And Mick Jones, rest in peace, often used to say to me that over a period of time, clubs would find their natural position in the pecking order of things. And with Notts currently and with 10,000 gates, then I think we are at least one division below where we should be and can be. And I think if you're a manager, and I spoke to several managers and coaches, and they all say to me, perhaps it's because they're a bit older, they all go, Notts County's a big club. I would consider going there. I remember Michael Appleton, the chat, he said there was only 3 or 4 clubs in League Two he would look at as a project. Notts were one of them, because of, and that was when Alan Hardy was there, and because of the stature of the club and the pedigree of the club. So I think a manager or a head coach who backs himself would see Notts as a great project,
Absolutely. Not so a bigger club than a lot of teams in League One.
Yeah,
You could go through league. It looks better on your CV. It'll have more standing on your CV. But again, that's not taking anything away from where anybody is because you're there on merit. If a team's in League One, fair play to them. That they deserve to be there, and Notts don't at the minute. But in terms of stature of club, size of club, and what it means on your CV, then absolutely not so bigger than a lot of League One clubs. So Mick Jones absolutely right. If Notts were to be at their level, we are below par at the minute.
yes,
League Two, we are not a League Two club, but we are obviously. But
yeah,
in terms
and
of
deserve
size,
to be. Yeah,
stature,
deserve to be.
history,
Yeah,
we are not a League Two club, and that's not us. Oh, we're massive, this, that, and the other. No, but we shouldn't be a League Two club, but for various reasons over years and years, we are. But thankfully, we're looking up, and hopefully, it'll be not too long before we actually manage to achieve going up again. But I say it doesn't come easy, not in the Football League.
yeah. Well, we shall hopefully in the not too distant future find out. Chloe made a good point the other week while you were golfing, Stel. It will be interesting to see over the next week or two if we don't sign anyone and wait for the new head coach to come in. That might well tell you something about the recruitment. If we sign 3 players in the next 10 days, but we haven't got a head coach, I'll be interested in that dynamic. I'll be
Yeah,
interested to see which way round it goes.
yeah, absolutely. And look, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't sign anybody till a new head coach comes in because again, why would you? If the new coach, the owners and the recruitment policy
In
and
previous
Roberto
years, we
Gagliardi,
did do that, though, Stel. In
yeah, we
previous years,
did.
we
Yeah,
did do that.
we did. But again, whether things evolve, things do change
Yeah,
over time. Whether with Roberto Gagliardi,
yeah,
whether he has a different model, or whether he's identified, or with various others, they've identified the players and go, no, we'll go and get the players and then bring the head coach in. But I wouldn't be surprised if they were a long way down the route of appointing a head coach, and say the head coach appointment was within the next week, let's say.
mm,
If they knew they were close enough to making an appointment, I think they would then wait, because you could speak to all the agents and all the
yeah,
players and say, look, we're announcing the manager in the next week. We still like you as a player. We're still going to do this, whatever, but we want to appoint him and bring you in and give you a fanfare and what have you, sort of thing. So everything looks to be done, stacking your dominoes in the right order.
yeah. I think it's interesting because if you sign 3 players and then you're interviewing the managers and the head coaches, the really ballsy ones would probably say, "Well, I don't want them." And I just think it's a very interesting dynamic. I don't think we will sign anyone until
Yeah,
got the new head coaching. I don't think we
I was going
will.
to say, a ballsy manager saying I don't want them would get immediately told, well, you're not having them. You ain't got the job. See you later. Close the door
Yeah,
on your way out.
yeah.
So yeah,
But
yeah,
Luke
I wouldn't be
Williams, yeah,
surprised.
Luke Williams, I thought made a very good point in his kind of "come and get me" any prospective chairman interview with a newspaper about 2 weeks ago. He said that after Swindon, whatever it was, he basically had to apply for every job going, and it didn't matter what they told him. He said yes because he needed the job. Yeah, that was the
Oh,
paraphrasing.
yeah,
But
of
now,
course
as
it
a
is.
result of Swansea, although clearly he needs to carry on working, he can afford to be a little more selective, yeah, and slightly less acquiescent than he was before he took the Notts job, which I thought was a very interesting point.
Of course it is. I mean, look, everybody has a pretty good idea of what your value, what your market value is. If you've got the sack from a Premier League club, but you've got a decent CV, you're not going to take a National League job, the first one that comes around, because you could probably get something better. And everybody knows where they are in the pecking order. So like you say, when Luke Williams was at Swindon, no CV behind him. Exactly. You're like a nodding dog, aren't you? Say yes to anything. You don't mind any recruitment structure. You don't mind any way. You don't mind whatever to get the job. But this is what I'm saying, that
Yeah,
jokingly, yes, but there are only 92 Football League manager jobs available at any, or 92 people employed at any one time. And when one goes, they get inundated with dozens and dozens of applications for it. So these are, supply and demand and all that sort of thing. These
yeah,
jobs are in demand. So if you've not got a CV and you're not particularly strong on paper, then you'd agree to anything
yeah.
almost. So, and vice versa. If you are strong in terms of managerial position, then you can sort the wheat from the chaff, if you like, afford to be a bit more picky. But but when you're talking about League Two clubs, then not too many managers are being too picky.
Very good. Right. Well, I would like to say this is the end of the 24-25 season and good riddance to it, but clearly it probably isn't, on the basis we're likely, fingers crossed, to be having an incoming head coach in the not too distant future. We will, of course, be back for that. Thank you so much to all of the flock this season for all your thoughts and views. We are currently, I think, 22 short of 1,000 people watching us at the minute. Hey, not too long ago, that was about a League Two midweek crowd for us. But anyway, so Stel, thank you as always for everything.
Yeah,
So I'm not saying it's the end, because I think there will be one more time when we get the new head coach. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long. But thank you, as always, for all your input and your views. No one watches this show because of me. I know that. Everyone tells me they only tune in for you. So anyway, so I've gone for Macaulay Langstaff coming back. We've both gone for Ian Evatt. Who did you go for on the striker then?
yeah, I managed to dodge the question. I set the
Yeah,
question.
come
I
on
don't
then.
have to answer it, do I?
Come on, you do. Who would you go for?
Who would I have? Yeah, I'd have Macca and Didsey.
Okay.
Macca and
Okay.
Didsey, I think.
Okay.
But but I would take any of the other two as well. Have the others as backup. But yeah, look, this is the time now, isn't it? Speculation started already.
Yeah.
We're all looking forward to the new recruits, the head coach first, and then the players, and hopefully that can create this excitement and, like I say, galvanise the fan base, because it was split, and you don't want it fracturing, and you want everybody on the same page. So hopefully we have a good summer. Everybody has a good summer, good holidays, and what have you, and we're all come back ready and rare. And is it August the 2nd? I think it starts next season.
Early start. If you're thinking, why on earth is it that early? It's World Cup in America, so they're kind of condensing the calendar. So yeah, I mean, when you say August the 2nd, first league game, friendlies will probably be first week of July, certainly second week of July. So there isn't much of a summer at all. Are you still opening the batting, Stell?
Well, possibly. I've got my first game this weekend. I've got to check whether my eyes are still good enough or not. Retirement is calling at cricket at some point. My body's letting me down. My eyes are letting me down. So apart from that, yeah, I will try. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so we'll be back when we know who the new manager or head coach is. Thank you to one and all for all your support, interaction, and comments this season. We don't know quite when we'll be back, but it will be when we get a new manager. Good night for now, Stel. Thank you as always.
Yeah, pleasure. Cheers, everybody. Enjoy the summer.